Have you ever gone to bed feeling perfectly healthy, only to wake up unable to move or speak, your body no longer your own? What happened to Amber Kavanaugh that December night wasn't just a medical emergency. It was a doorway, a crack between this world and the next. In this video, you'll hear her story, how a Christmas evening turned into a fight for her life, and how, in the quietest moment, something divine broke through. Stay with us. Because what she saw on the other side might forever change the way you see life and death. My name is Amber Kavanaugh. I live on Vancouver Island, in the gentle mist and evergreen quiet of Western Canada. On December 22nd, 2021, I was 40 years old, healthy, busy, and full of joy. It was just a few days before Christmas, and the house was alive. The kind of warmth you only feel when family is near, and laughter bounces off kitchen walls. That day, we made gingerbread houses. The sweet smell of cinnamon, melted sugar, and frosting lingered in the air. My kids were smiling. The Christmas lights glowed softly in the living room. We were just happy. That night, we curled up on the couch watching a holiday movie. I remember leaning back, soaking in the coziness, when something strange happened. A sudden, sharp pain behind my eyes. It wasn't like the usual tension headaches I sometimes got. This was different. A pressure I couldn't explain. And it came fast. I turned to my family and gently said, "You guys, I don't feel well. I think I need to lie down." It was only 9 p.m., early for me, but I knew something wasn't right. I climbed into bed, hoping rest would ease the pain. But by 10:30, the headache had become unbearable. I couldn't see straight. It felt like someone had driven a spike through my skull. I texted my husband from bed. "Can you bring me a Tylenol and an Advil?" He did. I took them. And then, everything went dark. What I didn't know at the time was that my carotid artery had dissected on the left side of my neck. A tear in the very blood vessel meant to keep me alive. The pain was a warning, but I didn't recognize it. How could I? I wasn't even 41. Somewhere between night and morning, I fell into unconsciousness. My body began to fail silently, unnoticed, while the house slumbered under the peaceful glow of Christmas lights. At around 4:30 a.m., I woke up, or I thought I did. I was in bed, but something was wrong. I felt heavy, distant from myself. I tried to sit up, and that's when it happened. My body collapsed. My right side had vanished. I couldn't feel it, couldn't use it, couldn't even understand what was happening. I didn't think stroke. Who would? I thought I was dreaming. Disoriented and terrified, I pushed myself off the bed. My body crumbled to the floor like a marionette with its strings cut. I remember the silence, the coldness of the floor, my mind screaming inside a body that would not respond. I couldn't yell. I couldn't make a sound. My voice was gone. And so, with what strength I had left in my left arm, I started to drag myself. The wall was just beside me. I pounded on it. Once, twice, 5 times, as hard as I could. It must have sounded like nothing more than a thump in the night, but by some grace, my husband heard it. He came into the room, eyes bleary, confused. "What are you doing on the floor?" he asked. He tried to lift me by the arms, but my body, lifeless, limp, was impossible to hold. He paused, looked at me carefully, and then, panic etched across his face, he said, "I think you're having a fudding stroke." Everything after that moved fast and slow. The ambulance came. I was awake, but locked in. The paramedics laughed and joked as if I wasn't there, as if I wasn't dying. But then, one nurse, facing the other way, turned around. His face changed. His voice cut the air like a blade. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "She's clearly having a stroke." He picked up the phone and called the stroke code. Within minutes, I was in a CT scan. They saw it. The dissection. The massive blockage. The irreversible damage blooming inside my brain. They tried TPA, a powerful clot-busting drug. But nothing happened. No response. My arm dangled. My body didn't flinch at pain. My right side was gone. And the worst part? Because I had gone to sleep, the stroke had time to complete its destruction. I had suffered a full MCA stroke. 2/3 of the left side of my brain was dead. There was only one last hope: brain surgery. But our local hospital couldn't do it. I needed to be flown to another facility, and time was running out. A storm was approaching. The helicopter refused to fly. And that's when the charge nurse, an angel in human form, took the phone and screamed, "I'm not going to watch this woman die in front of her children on Christmas. You are coming. Now." The sky cracked open. The sun began to rise. The helicopter finally came. They strapped me down. I was barely conscious. My husband was allowed to ride along, a rare exception. The flight was only 15 minutes, but no one thought I would survive it. And then, something happened. As we lifted above the trees, just before 9 a.m., the sun shone directly through the window and hit my face. And the moment it did, I was gone. I was no longer in the helicopter, no longer in my body, no longer holding on to this world. And what I saw next was not of this earth. If this touched your heart, subscribe to our channel and comment your city more amen for a prayer. The moment the sunlight touched my face in that helicopter, it was as if the veil between worlds simply fell away. I didn't feel myself leave my body. I didn't float upward. I didn't hear a whoosh or a sound. It was instantaneous. One moment, I was strapped to a stretcher surrounded by machines and the low hum of medical urgency. And the next, I was standing barefoot in a garden that pulsed with light. Not sunlight. Not any light I had ever seen before. It shimmered through the air itself, a golden glow that radiated from the ground, the sky, even from the leaves of the trees. The grass beneath my feet wasn't cold, nor soft in the way we know softness. It was alive. A warmth rose from it like a memory you'd forgotten you needed. As I walked, every blade of grass seemed to welcome me, not with words, but with a kind of quiet reverence. The air was still, yet vibrant. I heard no wind, but the trees moved gently, as if stirred by a breath I couldn't see. In the distance, water sparkled, not with reflections, but as if it too were lit from within. I didn't feel weight. No heaviness, no pain, not even the memory of pain. My body, if I even had one, felt renewed, younger somehow, but not childish. I was 40 years old when I left that helicopter. But here I looked. 25, perhaps. Not in a superficial way, but in the sense of spiritual wholeness. My skin was clear, my mind silent, my heart unburdened, and I was wearing a white dress, simple, eyelet cotton, the kind of thing I'd never wear on Earth, but that somehow made perfect sense here. I wasn't alone. There was a presence beside me, sitting on a bench beneath a blooming tree, whose petals glowed like embers at dusk. It was my guide. Not an angel with wings, not a figure cloaked in mystery, but someone deeply familiar, like an old friend I'd never met in this life, but who had always known me. I sat beside him, or maybe I stood. It didn't matter. Space didn't behave the same way here. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. In this place, understanding passed through silence. Thoughts were exchanged not through words, but through knowing. And what I knew, as clearly as I had ever known anything, was that I was being given a choice. Not a demand, not a command. A sacred offering. Stay or return. That garden, that radiant place, was not heaven in the way we imagine it with harps and pearly gates. It was a threshold, a place between the worlds, a place for souls like mine, still tethered faintly to the living, to decide which path they would take. I turned, and there, standing a few steps behind, were my children, my husband. Not as they were in that hospital or our living room, but as their higher selves. Glowing, eternal, unmistakably them. And they weren't crying. They weren't begging. They were simply present, peaceful, as if they too were part of the same eternal decision. And then I saw more. Animals I had loved, who had passed. One of them, strangely, had not yet died. A truth I wouldn't understand until days later when I was told she had passed while I was still in the hospital. And beyond them, a crowd. Dozens. Then hundreds. Faces I didn't recognize with my earthly mind, but who I knew instantly belonged to me. They were me. Different lifetimes, different forms, all present to surround and support me. Here I understood. We are never alone. We have never been. Pause now and share in the comments. Have you ever felt a spiritual moment that changed you forever? The garden hummed with a quiet music, not one you hear with ears, but one that fills the soul. I walked a little. I sat again. I remember running my fingers through the grass, soaking in the sensation. I think I spent more time doing that than anything else. I wasn't in a hurry. Time here didn't pass, or maybe it passed all at once. And then came the knowing. My guide began to show me what would come if I stayed. It wasn't punishment. It wasn't reward. It was expansion. The continuation of learning, of evolution, of being absorbed again into something vast and luminous. A current of love. Pure, intelligent, conscious love. But then he showed me what would happen if I returned. I saw my children growing up. I saw their pain and their strength. I saw my husband's life without me. And while it didn't hurt the way grief feels on earth, I did feel the weight of love, of connection. Then I saw the other version. If I returned, I would suffer. That part was clear. I would be paralyzed, mute, broken. The first 6 months would be harder than anything I'd ever endured. The next year would test everything in me. But through it all, a purpose would emerge. I would write, I would speak. I would teach others what I had seen, not just through stories, but through presence. Through being a living reminder that we are not these bodies, that we are not our worst days, that we are loved. I asked, without asking, how I would survive that, how I could possibly return to such agony. And my guide answered with a single feeling: the presence of God. Not a man, not a throne, not a voice, but a presence, a source. It radiated from everything and everyone. And it said, "You are never alone in what you walk through. You chose this path long before you came here, and we chose it with you." The moment stretched, or vanished. I don't know how long I stayed there. Minutes, hours, a lifetime. But I knew I had to choose. And in that space of divine love, of absolute peace, of no fear, I made my decision. And just as gently as I had arrived, the garden disappeared, and I found myself somewhere else, not yet back in my body, but not in the garden either. Somewhere in between, a chamber of light, silent, infinite, and waiting. I stood in the light. There was no time, no direction, no temperature. Just light, soft, living, endless, surrounding me with a presence that felt ancient and intimate all at once. It didn't shine from a source. It was the source. It filled the space without casting shadows, and yet it revealed everything. I was alone, but not lonely. I was silent, but not disconnected. Here, there were no questions left to ask, because everything was already known. From this space, I could still see my family. Not with eyes, but through some stream of awareness. I saw them waiting at the hospital, hands clenched, faces swollen from crying. I saw doctors moving urgently around my body, machines blinking, nurses whispering. The gravity in the room felt like the earth itself was holding its breath. I turned inward. Or maybe I was turned. And suddenly I saw it all. My life. Not in flashes or quick vignettes, but in fullness. Every choice I'd ever made. Every regret I'd ever carried. Every word I'd spoken in anger. Every silent act of kindness. Every time I'd reached out and every time I hadn't. Every moment I had judged someone. Every moment I had been judged. And none of it brought shame. There was no judgment here. Only understanding. I saw the shape of my life, the invisible threads that connected events I once thought were random. The heartbreaks, the illnesses, the disappointments. Even the betrayals, all laid bare, not as punishment, but as pieces of a sacred design I had chosen long ago. I saw how even the worst moments had bent me gently toward compassion, resilience, and grace. Nothing had been wasted, and I wasn't the only one. From this place, I understood that we all come into this world to learn. Not in theory, but in experience. We sign a sacred contract before birth. We choose the terrain, the lessons, the timing. We forget it all to make the growth authentic. But the soul never forgets. And now, mine remembered everything. I saw that this stroke was not a mistake. It was a turning point I had agreed to long before I was Amber Kavanaugh. It was the fire that would burn away the layers of my old life and reveal something new, if I chose to return. But it wouldn't be easy. I was shown a timeline, not with days or clocks, but in sensation. The first 6 months would feel like drowning inside my own body. I would not be able to speak, walk, feed myself. I would be like an infant inside a grown woman's form. My children would look at me and not recognize the mother they once knew. And yet, I would endure. Not because I was strong, but because something greater would carry me. 18 months. That was the span I was given. 18 months of fire, of rebuilding, of surrender. At the end of it, I would emerge, changed but aligned. My voice would return, my mind would rebuild, and my soul would be steadier than it had ever been. Then they showed me what would come after. I saw books, not just one, pages upon pages, filled with truths I had forgotten until now. I saw myself speaking, not loudly, not forcefully, but with a quiet authority that moved people to tears. I saw elderly men with trembling hands gripping mine. I saw women who had lost children, holding on to every word I said as if it were their own breath. I saw rooms filled with people who weren't just curious about the afterlife. They were hungry for remembrance. And in every scene, I wasn't the center. I was the mirror, reflecting back what each soul already carried. Light, love, the eternal truth. That we are not here to be perfect. We are here to be transformed. Then the light shifted, and I was shown the other path, the one where I stayed. Peace, expansion, the return to the greater whole, a gentle dissolving into God's current. I would be free of pain, free of separation, free of longing. There would be nothing left to fix, nothing left to fear. I would be home, but I would not speak again. I would not write the words. I would not become the bridge for others who still walked their fire. And so the choice came, not with pressure, not with urgency, but with clarity. My guide returned, still silent, still present, still holding the space for me to choose. And then, something new appeared. It wasn't a figure. It wasn't a sound. It was a presence. God. Not in form, but in essence. It surrounded me, through me, within me. It was warmth beyond warmth, intelligence beyond words. It knew me more deeply than I had ever known myself. And it didn't ask for anything. It offered no command, no demand, no agenda, only love. And in that love, I felt the truth. That returning wouldn't mean going backward. It would be the bravest act of my soul. And so I said yes, without lips, without sound. Just a deep, resonant yes from the core of my being. And the moment I chose, the chamber faded, and the pain returned. But before I fell fully into my body, there was one last thing, a vision, a glimpse of something, or someone, waiting for me at the other end of the hardest season of my life. And that vision would carry me through the darkness to come. The pain came like a storm with no warning. One moment I was cradled in light, whole and eternal. The next I was back in the broken shell of my human body, bound to tubes and silence, swallowed by a weight that words cannot describe. My eyes didn't open. My voice didn't return. But I was back. I could feel it. The crushing gravity of flesh, the confusion of mind, the tightness in my chest. It was as if I had been dropped into a house that had collapsed from the inside. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I couldn't even cry. And then came the seizure. They had warned me in the light. If you are going to die, you will seize. I didn't know if this was it. I could feel my body begin to convulse violently, but I wasn't inside it fully. I was watching, still half tethered to the space between worlds. I could see my husband standing at the edge of the hospital bed, hands trembling, face pale, watching the woman he loved become unrecognizable. The seizure lasted long, longer than anyone expected. And when it ended, I fell. Not into death, but into sleep. A deep, unconscious, empty sleep. And when I awoke, for the first time, I felt fully inside myself. But it was not the self I had known. I was in a body I couldn't command. My right side was still paralyzed. My voice was gone. I couldn't eat, couldn't drink, couldn't use the bathroom. I was fed through a tube in my nose. A catheter managed what I couldn't. I was trapped, aware, conscious, and fully alive, inside a vessel that no longer obeyed. Doctors came in and out. Their faces were kind but honest. "This is her life now," they said. "She'll need 24/7 care. She won't walk again. She may never speak again." I heard them all. Every word. My body was broken, but my mind was sharp. And my spirit, though battered, still remembered what I had seen. And so I waited. Hour after hour. Day after day. And something began to shift. A finger twitched, an eye opened. A word, not spoken, but formed silently in the mind. And then came the miracle. December 27th, 5 days after the stroke. I told a nurse I needed the bathroom. She paused, confused, then gently said, "Let's try." I stood. I walked. 10 feet to the bathroom, unassisted. They said it wasn't possible. They said the damage was too great. But I knew. Because I had already seen the path. That moment was the first step. Not just for my body, but for my mission. Recovery wasn't linear. Some days, I screamed inside. Some days, I couldn't remember how to hold a spoon. There were setbacks, humiliations, sobbing nights, prayers whispered through clenched teeth. But each struggle became a thread in a greater tapestry, one that I was now weaving with full awareness. I began to speak again, slowly, imperfectly. My children heard my voice for the first time since Christmas morning. My husband held my hand and cried without words. And inside, the garden still lived. I carried its light in the way I moved, in the way I forgave, in the way I endured. People ask me if I miss that place. The answer is yes, every single day. But I didn't come back to forget it. I came back to remember it for others, to tell those who feel forgotten that they are seen, to tell those who are broken that they are still whole, to tell those who are grieving that love never ends. Now I write, I speak, I share, not to be admired or followed, but to be a bridge, a reminder that beyond every diagnosis, every stroke, every loss, every night of despair, there is something greater, a presence, a promise, a light that cannot be dimmed. And if you've lost your way, if the pain has pulled you too far under, know this: the garden waits, and the voice of God is never far. Just one breath, just one step, and it will find you, because it never left. If you believe love never ends, subscribe now and comment your name, city, and amen so I can pray for you.